how much when you're writing a fictionalized version? I mean, Zora's very. I think I heard you and Tanya compare her to Sherlock Holmes, to Carius Watson.
Yeah.
When you're, and obviously the real life Zora probably was extremely Sherlock Holmes as a child. But how much leeway do you feel you have when you're writing about somebody who's kind of sort of real, even though she's not exactly the version you're writing about?
Well, I never felt like I didn't have leeway. It never it never occurred to me not to do what I wanted to do. I think in part because I never considered writing anything about young Zora that would be out of step with who she became. I guess I always kind of gave myself the credit of honoring her memory and honoring her legacy and her work. So I never put any bounds or barriers around what I could or couldn't write or say or not say, because I guess I just always knew within myself and within the universe of these books that whatever we would say would be in step and honor some aspect of who she was in life and what her work is a testament to.
When you're writing about 1905, how much research are you doing? Are you actually going out and doing a little bit of laundry the way that they would have done it then to get that experience, or are you just reading about it and that's more than sufficient to give you what you need to write? How do you do your research, and how much of it was necessary?
Well, I mostly did reading. I didn't learn how to do the laundry, but I will tell you that the whole kind of laundry piece of it came from a book by a friend of mine called No Mercy Here, which is the story of Black women and incarceration in the Jim Crow South. And one thing that I discovered when I read that book is that Black women laundresses were often blamed for illnesses. So if someone became ill in a household, the laundress was accused of doing a poor job and, proliferating the illness or the virus from, a lack of cleanliness. So that was, I know, right? It's like insane. Like you get sick and you like say the laundress did it. It's like, what? But like this was a thing. So that's something else that kind of got woven into the fabric of the book, laundry and the connection to illness. I was kind of turning that over. Another thing in this book that also got into the summer. So maybe I should really, credit Sarah Haley's book, No Mercy Here, as like another big influence, because clearly it was. Another thing that got into the book was The Fugitive and, the lynching. So that was kind of another thing that I learned about from this book, No Mercy Here, is that when a fugitive was on the run, whoever the Black people were in that area, wherever the fugitive happened to be, moving through, or wherever he or she was suspected to be, the Black people in that area became suspects and were often raided and harassed and so forth. Irrespective of whether or not they knew the person, had heard of the person, it's just all happenstance, based on you're here, you're Black, you're involved. Like, huh, what? What are you talking about? I don't know. So that also was a thing that got worked into the Summoner as well.
I love that Zora's mother is immediately defiant, doesn't believe the official story about why this person is on the run, and is just openly saying that, hey, if they come around, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to harbor him because it's my Christian duty. Hey, maybe you don't say that so loud, but yeah, right on.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I felt like I couldn't not write that in, because it didn't feel like everyone would deny someone in need, like I felt like it would be against the nature of the people that we have been writing these books about, for everyone to turn off their lights, shut the door, and say, no one's here, good luck. I couldn't stomach that for these characters. And I hope if put in a similar situation, I would do the right thing, not the safe thing. So.
Well, fortunately, racism is a thing of the past, and I'm sure we'll never have to deal with any similar circumstance.
Yeah, oh, that's over.
Well, let's dive into that just a bit because you are writing about the Jim Crow South. This
Hmm.
is a middle grade novel, but you're not sugarcoating anything.
Hmm.
You're making reference to violence, to rape, among other horrific things throughout the book.
Hmm.
Obviously, this is book three. So the nice thing you've got going for you is any adults that might be up in arms. I think children will be fine, but any adults that might be up in arms that this is too advanced for a middle grade audience. Well, they had two books to get the tone and the gist of this series. This shouldn't be a surprise by the summoner.
Hmm.
But how did you and Tanya approach that to tell the truth, but to keep things appropriate for a middle grade audience?
Hmm. That's a really good question. So I think it never occurred to us not to present the history and the reality of the dynamics at play here. I think that, in fact, was the reason why we wanted to write these books at all, is that it gave us a chance to explore these issues with a young audience. So I think that was, writing about Zora Neale Hurston gave us, again, kind of a gateway into discussing so many different types of issues related to race and gender, in the context of Eatonville, which was extremely unique as one of the first all Black incorporated towns. So in that regard, I felt like we got to have it kind of both ways. We get to explore the racism and the sexism of the Jim Crow South, but we get to do so in this very unique context of a kind of contained Black democracy, which was something that I really loved exploring in The Summoner. Um, about what I say or what I think about presenting these issues to a young audience, a middle grade audience. It's like kids are watching this news that we're all watching, right? Kids are at these protests. Kids have relatives that are, abusing them, abusing other people, abused by the police. Kids are in middle, especially middle schoolers, middle graders, they're in the middle of all this stuff. So my position has always been like, how dare anyone gaslight kids? Kids are in tough situations, they're seeing this stuff, they're doing tough things themselves. Kids need some help. They need to have virtual experiences, right? Navigating difficult situations so they can kind of grow their skill set, grow their coping mechanisms, have some insight into how other people have navigated things that no one should have to navigate, right? So I feel like kids are living life and it's hard. How dare anyone pretend that it's not?
Well, I 100% am with you, and yet I was horrified just this very day. One, I just learned that there was a thing called Prager University a week ago. I was happier not knowing that it
Mm-hmm.
existed, which for those of you that aren't aware, don't look it up. It's just terrible, but it's very much propaganda, pro right wing propaganda. And I just learned that there are schools in Ohio and elsewhere that are
Mm-hmm.
incorporating that as part of their curriculum. So I'm hoping it's those students that most need to read Zora and Me and need to know that no, you're being lied to. Read the actual history, understand
Mm-hmm.
what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a question in there, just my own horror at having learned these things recently.
Yeah, well, I something that I often think is that as much as, kids of color, readers of color need representation of people like them, need to see people like them, need to read depictions of their own history. I think white kids and white readers need books that focus on kids of color and their experiences and their humanity just as much. And it just blows my mind that these issues aren't at the forefront of, you know, curriculum, basically, and in history and English classes across the board, just because they help grow all of our humanity, period. As a kid, surprise, I'm Black, right? But like as a kid, it never occurred to me, oh, this white character is being so white. I can't understand them. They're so different than me. I think kids of color read and we're just absorbed in the experiences of the characters, what their lives are, what the story is, in a way that I can't believe I'm saying this, but for me as a kid, so most of my reading experiences were colorblind, even though most of the books I read were by white people and about white people. It never was a barrier to me understanding and expanding my sense of humanity reading about white people. So I think Black kids of color have been doing this for a millennia. I think some white kids can do it too. Like it's not a big deal. It's just a book with Black people in it. Like we've been reading like lots of books with white people in it. It's not a big deal. Like it's just a book. It has story. Just it'll be fine.
Well, it is a big deal because more white children do need to read these things. It's a shame that for so long many of them haven't, because it's not. I mean, it's not Black history, white history. This is American history. This is all of our history. If you're wondering how things got to the point where we're at now, well, it didn't start the moment you were born. A lot of this stuff has been in motion since long back. Not that I need to tell you.
Yeah, but thank you. But thank you, because I was being a little bit glib. So thank you for giving the topic the gravity that it deserves.
Well, I just read the book. You're the one with the gravity. My book has alligator people and jetpacks. I'm not touching Jim Crow South thus far in my literature. Maybe we'll get there.